Calling all authors, the Your Book, Your Voice podcast with host Robert A. Lane features everything you need to know about narrating your audiobook, but it doesn't stop there. We have special guests lined up from all aspects of the book publishing industry, and we also dive deep into what it takes to be mentally prepared for success as an author and in life. So please welcome your host, Robert A. Lane.
Hey, my friends, welcome to the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. Glad you're here. My name is Robert A. Lane. I am an audiobook coach and producer, and I help nonfiction authors turn their great piece of work, whether it's a memoir, or maybe you're a coach or an entrepreneur, or maybe you're an educator or a teacher, and you've written a book and you're ready to take it to the next level. That's where I can help you out and turn that book into an audiobook that you as the author narrate, because again, you are the most qualified person to narrate your book. It's your story. No one can tell your story better than you. But in addition to talking about the audiobook world, I love bringing on guests, authors and people from the book industry and profession. And today we have a fantastic guest that's going to join us today. And I'd like to go ahead and bring our guest Robert Gaines on now because, why wait, right? Let's just dive right in. So I'd like to welcome Robert Gaines, who he is an author, and he's also a podcaster, a podcast host. We're going to talk about the podcasting world as well. I think it'd be good to share some of the inside information about what it takes to be a podcaster and an author and an entrepreneur. And I know, Robert, you've also, you owned a recording studio, and we got to talk a little bit about music because that's just what we have to do. It's a requirement because I'm a Robert and you're a Robert, and recording studio begins with an R. So it just all makes sense. It all comes together. And you also served in the military. You're a veteran, and so you've done a lot of great things in your life. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Robert. I'm very honored to be on here. I've watched your podcast. You've had some dynamite authors on, and I thought, wow, I don't know why he picked me because you've had some real heavy hitters on your podcast. So I'm very grateful. It's great to be with you.
Well, we're going to talk about your book, and we'll dive into that in just a second. But I do want to ask you a couple of questions. First of all, are you a musician? Because you had a recording studio. Did you play music? Was that the catalyst to get this recording studio that you had?
It's funny because I tried to be a musician. I probably have put more hours into trying to learn to play guitar and zero progress. So I loved music. I loved being around musicians. I tried and tried and tried. And I actually tried to think to myself, how can I be around these people? Because I want to be part of this somehow. And I actually I went and bought a bunch of live gear, mixer. I learned at a couple of speakers, floor monitors, just very, very basic setup, and offered my services for free so that I could learn the business. I went to some rundown clubs and some just starting bands, learned my way around that. And when I felt comfortable and finally had some money in my pocket, I upgraded, put everything in the house that I had at the time, and built a real studio from the ground up. And my whole life has been magnetized and energized by being around artistics. I tend to be the left brain person, and I like to be around the rest. So they have what I don't have, and I have what vice versa. It's just great. I love being around painters and photographers and anybody that has that, because I know how to get my hands on the money and they know how to create wonderful work, and I try to help them. Monetizing an artist's work is really some of the most fun things that I've been involved with. I had an art gallery too, so I'm always end up around creatives trying to put some money in their pocket for their wonderful work.
Well, that's good to know, because as a musician, and maybe some people who've watched the podcast don't know that, but I am a musician. I do have a persona that I go by as an artist, which is Lane's Lair, and I am currently working on my third album. And I'm going to need some marketing and promotion, and I got to build a team together, Robert. So I may have to reach out to you and get some help and advice, because I really want to push this album and make it a great one. It's my third album, and I'm really excited about it. So yeah, we'll definitely have to talk.
Absolutely. Well, I'm looking forward to it because I know that we dig a lot of the same music, and from the stuff that I've seen on your YouTube channel, I know I'm gonna like it because I'm into progressive, complex, time changes and things like that, and I think that's your vibe as well, so I think it's gonna be fantastic.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I was just thinking of the second song for the album is in 10/4, then goes into no wait, it starts in 6/4, 10/4, goes back to 6/4. So hey, there you go, time signatures galore. But
I
hopefully it
love
makes
it.
sense. Now you also served in the military. What branch did you serve in, and when did you serve?
I was in the Army from '90 to '98. The oddest thing about that is I was signed up for artillery and, right
Oh,
before the ground war, so I was serious. I went in, I thought, they said this was gonna be the biggest battle of all time. They really built it up. We were up against I think the 3rd best trained military at the time, the Iraqi Republican Guard, but I signed up on the only weapon system they didn't deploy to Iraq.
no,
So you could look that could be a mixed blessing. I think about
yeah,
it and I think, well, so I think about that a lot. But after about 3 years in the military, they came to us and said, all of us that had our job, and they said, "We're gonna get rid of this weapon system. We're gonna replace it completely with the multi-launch rocket system, MLRS." So I was unemployed and in the Army, which was very strange. So I
huh,
reclassified. I'll tell you how smart the 20-something-year-old version of me was, because our weapon system was nuclear capable, which is another reason why we didn't go to Iraq. And they asked me, they said, "Well, you have pretty decent scores. What kind of job do you want in the military? You can pick." And I said, "What else do you have involving radiation?" And I'll never forget thinking like, "God, was I dumb?" And they said, "Well, we've got radiology." And I said, "That's great." I had no idea what that involved. And I ended up working the last 5 years of my career in a level one trauma center, ER, OR, burn ward, very different from being out firing missiles in the field. But it was interesting. It was an interesting 8-year career. No combat deployments, but I did. I served honorably and made some great memories while I was in there.
so you didn't want to go the Glenn Miller route, huh? You didn't want to, lead a band or
No, no, that it was interesting because I looked at those jobs before I got in, but again,
uh,
I didn't have the musical talent. My brother got that gene. I got the engineer, kind of that type of mind, producing engineer, and my brother, he got all the musical skill.
yeah, no, I can totally relate to that. My dad, he worked for JPL, Jet Propulsion Laboratory. So he was the scientist. He was the engineer. Matter of fact, his job was reliability engineer, and he worked on all the successful spacecraft that we know of today. Viking 1, Viking 2, the two Viking probes that landed on Mars, the first ones to land on Mars. He did Voyager 1, Voyager 2, Galileo, Cassini. He worked on all of those, and which every single one of them were extremely successful. So I guess he did his job very well as a reliability engineer because they were very reliable. I mean, come on, look at Voyager is still working at what 40 plus years at least after it was launched, and it's still sending back information. It's unbelievable, unbelievable.
It's
So
it's incredible. Just today, I was explaining to somebody about we have 6, not the US, several countries overall. We have 6 rovers on the surface of Mars right now, basically 3 remote control robots. Depending on what day you're talking about, that's 150 million miles away that they were able to launch a probe, get this thing to drop out of a parachute, land on the ground, and then now they're driving it around from 150 million miles away. The margin for error is 0. So
yeah,
I'm sure your dad was among those people that they put the you want the best and brightest, it's JPL, it's these engineers. I mean, the feats that they're able to do, 150 million miles, it's incomprehensible. It's so technical, but
it's
it's a
yeah. I say it really is amazing, and I'm really proud of what my dad was able to accomplish there. And he did retire early. I don't know if he retired 55 or 60 or so. I don't quite remember. But and then they wanted him to come back as a consultant, and he did that for maybe 2 or 3 years or so. And then he just said, you know what? No, because he said that they were cutting corners, and
mm,
he was like, I don't want any part of this. And we have the results of that. There were at least 2 spacecraft that they lost or didn't function or didn't land properly. And that's what happens when you don't,
That's right.
you're right. The margin for error is 0. You have to be 100%, especially with something like that.
And these are projects that some of the ones your father worked on, they developed those for 20 years before they launched. I
Right.
mean, the level of investment, think of an egg that takes 20 years to hatch. I mean, that's the kind of minds people are planning these missions from a generational sense. It's mind-bending. And I did read Richard Feynman, the physicist, his book. He was involved in that investigation in the space shuttle disaster and why the
Oh, wow.
seal
Right.
broke and all that. So yeah, sorry, you got me on a subject I'm fascinated with. So.
Yeah. Well, it's okay because it's all part of who you are and what we are as human beings and what makes us, again, the one thing that I stress a lot, and I talk about it on this podcast, is about your author brand. And your author brand is, and I look at it this way, and I think a lot of people in the book industry feel the same way, is that everything about you and everything that encompasses who you are is what creates your author brand. That's who you are. The way you were brought up, your belief systems, your habits, your personality, your sense of humor, all of that is who you are. And as an author, as you are, when you write your book, your unique voice is already in your written word. And that's what makes you you. And that's what makes you stand out. And we're going to talk about, I know you did your book as an audiobook. We will talk about that a little later on. But again, your voice is a crucial part of your author brand. That's part of what allows you to stand out. And as you know, I'm a big proponent that all nonfiction authors really do need to narrate their own audiobook because it's their story, it's in their voice. Other narrators, there's great narrators out there, but again, it's their interpretation. It's not the author's interpretation. So there's going to be subtleties, there's going to be nuances that professional narrator, no matter how professional they are, they're going to miss it. They're going to miss out. And they might not tell the story the way the author intended it to be heard. How are your feelings about that?
There's no doubt in my mind. I'm probably a good test case, and this is no exaggeration. I have the invoices, I have the proof, I have the data. I've listened to about 300 audiobooks. Now, that's no joke. I've been a member of Audible since 1998, so I'm what they call a heavy user. I was with Audible long before they were acquired by Amazon,
Hmm.
and so I've got 300 cases where there's been some times where the narration's been so bad and it's a subject I really wanted to learn about that I
Hmm.
returned it. Um, you look at the ratings so a lot of times I won't even take a chance on audiobooks at certain levels of ratings, and I go immediately to the bad ratings and see, okay, can I deal with whatever this problem is? And
Hmm.
they're always complaining about the narration, and it's very rarely about the content. Think about a movie. You might want to learn a story about some historic figure, but if the delivery is terrible, I don't care who you are, you're not going to watch it. So I would say, next to the content, it's the next most important thing. I mean, you have to write, whether it be a song or a piece of lyric or poetry or script, it has to be interesting. It has to fix it. For us in nonfiction, it has to fix a problem potentially. And then second is the delivery. And so,
Hmm.
yeah, I would say it's you almost can't separate the two. They're both vitally important.
I agree with you 100%. And again, for those of you who are authors, don't think that you can't narrate your own audiobook because you can. When I wrote my book, I hired a book coach. If you need help, hire a coach. Get somebody to help you with the fine art of having to do voiceover and narration, because you can do it. And like I say, authors should narrate their own audiobook. We're going to dive more into this. I do want to talk about your book when we come back. We got to take a quick break, but I do want to talk about your book and find out more about what it's about, how you came up with that concept, how you came up with that title, all of that. So we're going to dive into that when we come back. This is the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. I'm Robert A. Lane. My very special guest is Robert Gaines. Don't go away, my friends. We're streaming live on the Bold Brave TV network. We'll be right back.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
We're back. Welcome to the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. My very special guest is Robert Gaines, author, podcaster, entrepreneur. Before we went to break, I mentioned about getting help, whether you're writing a book or doing an audiobook or really with anything that you do. I mean, think about it. If you want to lose weight, what do? You hire a weight loss coach. If you want to advance your career and climb the corporate ladder, you hire a career coach. If you're having relationship issues, what do? You hire somebody to help you with your relationships. And the same thing for an author. If you are writing a book and you want to write a book, or maybe you haven't, then you seek help and you get people who are experts that can make you be the best that you can possibly be. So Robert, when you wrote your book, you have a book that you released called Scintilla. When you wrote your book, did you have any help when you started the whole writing process? How did, matter of fact, let's even step back. What was the catalyst for getting you to write the book in the first place?
Very odd situation. So a friend came to me with a business concept that they wanted me to work on. I was consulting for them on it, and they were trying to get, it was basically, let's just say, a miniature version of Amazon, a very miniature version of Amazon. And he had influencers that he was going to plug into the system. Well, he realized after I was helping him do some research that the margins on the products that he was going to sell through this system weren't enough for him to pay himself, to pay the system, to pay the influencers. So then he asked me, he said, well, what about if you come up with some product ideas from scratch? And I went, oh. And I did what I always do, Robert. If I'm faced with a problem, usually the first thing I'll do is I'll go, no joke, I'm not making this up. I'll go get 3 audiobooks, 3 to 5 on that topic. I'll read them, and then I'll know what I don't know. And then I can now start my research project because I know I'm armed with what questions to ask and who to go to. But it takes, I'll pour the books in. So I started looking, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, how to come up with a business idea. There was none. There's books about how ideas form in the mind, the scientific end. There's books about what you do once you come up with a business idea. But the point of inception, the scintilla, the spark, that moment that it occurs, how can you make that happen? I was shocked. Even the copy editor, which answers your second question, I said to him, I said, I don't think this subject's ever been written about before. He said, I've been in this industry 40 years. Every book has, and I'll promise you, Robert, as I sit here, there's still not a book on the topic other than this one. I'm not saying it's the greatest book in the world. I'm just saying there's not another one on the planet, at least not in English, that I'm aware of on the same topic. But yes, I got a lot of help. I mean, I almost got a vocal coach early on.
Mm.
because I wanted to do the audiobook because I'm a consumer of audiobooks. That's what excites me is
Yeah.
audiobooks. So I wrote it with, I thought, that in mind. And I had been consulting with someone on Facebook about spending some time doing vocal coaching with them because I wanted the material to be delivered in an interesting way because it's nonfiction. So I didn't put in a whole lot of stories. It's a very nuts and bolts book. So it was imperative that the performance be dynamic, that my voice and the excitement in my voice exuded the excitement of the subject since it's very instructional. But yeah, I hired a copy editor. Um, Probably should have hired somebody else, but they did okay. And after I did that, this is the mistake I made. I want to get this off my chest right off the bat. I never read my own book aloud as I was writing it. So when I went to start the audio process and I started reading it out loud it was already on Amazon and I had not read it out loud. I'm ashamed to
Mm.
admit that. If you're writing your material, read it, read it out loud. I read it out loud and I thought, oh, this is terrible. So I apologize to everybody that bought it, that I could track down, pulled it down, revised it by about 20% to make it sound better when I was speaking it, and put up the revised version, the Kindle, the paperback, and the hardback. And
Mhm.
then I narrated the audiobook. And with the audiobook, I had help too. I had a lady that I did light editing and she made it ACX compliant. And just like you
Oh,
said on your video earlier today, she didn't just run it through some program. She went in and was making manual edits, like you suggested earlier, and you're absolutely right. You need people to do point to point specific editing and really get in there and get their hands dirty.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's, and that's what I do. You know, I mean, I will spend, honestly, depending on the size of the book, maybe 50 to 80 hours of editing time, just
Oh my
editing
God. Oh my
of
God.
of of,
Yes.
of an audiobook. And it all, and it depends, and it depends on the author and how they speak and their delivery and everything. And I mean, when they go through the program, of course, we're very detailed as to exactly what you need to do, how to set
Mhm.
up your recording space, and always being aware of your surroundings. Is there ambience, noises going on, and just being aware of your physical body. Is your mouth dry? So if it is, you're going to be making a lot of mouth noise. You don't want to have that. So, but some people sound really great, and there's minimal amounts of mouth noise, which is great. It makes my editing job a little bit easier. But then there's some people that's just the way they talk, and we're human beings, and that's part of being human. And so I may spend a lot of time editing, and if I can remove a tick or a mouth noise or something, I will. And if there is anything that doesn't sound quite right or doesn't feel quite right and it just catches my attention, I'll flag it and I'll have the author go in and just say, just redo this one sentence, and I'll insert it in, and it's good to go. But maybe I could get through maybe 10, 15 minutes of an audio chapter, let's say, in an hour, for example. Or if there's a lot of work, sometimes it takes me an hour just to get through 5 minutes worth of somebody's audiobook because there's so much mouth noise. But again, the way I look at it is, if you can fix it, fix it. If you can remove the sound, remove it. And that's what you do. And you have to, as a coach and as an editor, I care about my clients. I want them to sound the best that they possibly can, and I treat every audiobook as if it was my own. And that's my mindset when it comes to what I do as an audiobook coach and producer. And I know that there are other people there who will say, "Oh, you could do it for real cheap and this and that and the other." But cheap is the the key word, because what happens is that cheap equals cutting corners, and that is not good. As an author, you are, again, as we mentioned earlier, a brand. Your product represents your brand. Why would you put something out there subpar? Were there other things that you learned about the process when you did record your audiobook? Was there maybe a couple of things that you learned that would be good advice, and then maybe a couple of things that worked out really, really well?
Well, first they should hire you. That's the first, because some of my errors. So, I always talk about the time money continuum. It doesn't matter if we're talking about time or we're talking about money. In terms of opportunity cost, they are the same thing, because if you're
Mm,
spending time doing something, you could be spending time earning money. Like right now, I'm
mm,
on mandatory overtime at work, and they pay me. We all love the overtime money. It's good money. So if I get pulled away from that for something, I'm very
mm.
resistant to. I want all of that overtime. So my time
Right.
is extremely valuable to me. And I made mistakes early on that somebody with your expertise would have saved me all of that time that I spent, which is equal to money. So people,
Mm,
and going back to something you said before too, I want to mention I just recently, maybe 6 weeks ago, returned an audiobook from a major publishing house on a subject author I like, and a subject I was enthused about. The narrator, which I think wasn't the author,
mhm,
their mouth noise was so bad I couldn't get through it. I'm on the spectrum. That's not an excuse, but repetitive noises, I can't do it, and I had
mhm,
to return that book. So they lost a sale over mouth noise,
mhm.
and I made sure I'm not saying my book is great, but you won't hear my teeth clicking. But yes, so technically I narrated the book about halfway through 2 times, and each time I went back, I was unsatisfied. And although I had gotten this mic, the SM7DB, very early on, because again, I have a little bit of an audio background. I don't have your expertise. So I think I bought the right equipment the first time. I got lucky. But the one thing that I could pass on to other people is you really need to deaden your room. I mean, I had no idea how far I really needed to go. And you can get, well, they need to talk to you, get your expertise, but you can tell them the most cost effective way to make that room dead. But that's something that was a big game changer. Plus, too, by the third time I had narrated the book, and that was the version that ended up online. I got very much better at controlling my distance from the mic. You notice now, even though I gesticulate and I'm moving my hands, I'm not moving my body a lot. That's all of those hours of narrating that audiobook,
Right.
so that I'm not, you see in music videos where a singer's moving away from the mic. No, in the studio, you've got to be right on that mic. So there's a lot going on, Robert. There's things that people aren't going to understand until they're recording, and it's better for somebody to go through it with someone like you, who's done it dozens and dozens and dozens of times, because it's very time consuming to learn it all on your own. It's too much information. I was lucky because I had a recording studio in the late 90s, and I had a basic idea of what I was trying to achieve. But definitely,
Mhm.
had I started with you, it would have been much easier.
Well, again, the process, it is a process. It really is a process. And I think authors have the ability to narrate their own audiobook. But again, having that guidance, a support system, a safety net, an accountability partner, somebody who's there to help guide you through the process step by step, really does make all the difference in the world. Even when I wrote my book, like I mentioned, I hired a book coach to help me write, because I wasn't a professional writer, and the tools that they gave me really helped tremendously in regards to how to create an outline, how you're going to format, how you're going to tell your story, how is it going to flow from one chapter to the next chapter. And there's all these little components that make it uh, the best that you can possibly make it. But without knowing that, it can be a struggle. I mean, even like in the audiobook world, uh, if you want to be published on Audible, Amazon, and Apple, you got to go through ACX. Well, ACX, is not the best user-friendly service that's out there, but it's crucial to be on those three platforms, because that's what the general public knows. So if you're a nonfiction author, you really should be on, I call it the AAA, right? Audible, Amazon, Apple. You got to be on those three. And if there are any distribution platforms that do work for your marketing strategy, then great, then be on those as well. But people ask for audiobook by brand name. Are you on Audible? Oh, great. Then I know where to go to get it, as opposed to saying, do you have an audiobook? Where can I get this sound recording? It's not like that anymore.
That's the question I get. Is it on Kindle or audio? And I made sure that we were on all of the formats. And I'm sorry, I think you were gonna. Well, let me interrupt for a second. I
Yeah,
really
no, go ahead.
enjoyed your book. And Robert, I'll say the audio on your audiobook, which is available on audible.com, uh, your vocals and your delivery is far better than Al Pacino's autobiography, which just came out. And I just finished it not too long ago. Yours is he needed you. He needed your help. Now this is a guy with 5 Oscars and a big publishing company. And it wasn't a bad narration. It's just, you know, somebody needed to somebody should have coached a little bit better performance out of him. That's what I'll say.
It comes down to mindset too, and I'd like to get, your take on that too, because one thing that I do stress with authors that I work with is you got to be in the right frame of mind before you even hit that record button.
Mhm.
So what do you do to mentally prepare yourself, or what did you do to mentally prepare yourself before you said, okay, I'm going to tackle this chapter today?
I would say the toughest part is one thing humans are terrible at. We're terrible at self-analysis. I mean, I can tell everybody about their problems and what they need to do, but looking in the mirror is very difficult. And I had a moment where there was a passage that was very difficult, and I kept narrating it and narrating and narrated it so many times because I didn't want to rewrite it, um, because it was going to create more complications down the line. And when I listened to that 19th take playback, I was shocked at how angry I sounded. And I didn't feel like I was delivering it. And it was horrible. And I'm glad I didn't let that fly. So there's a real power in walking away, which is a concept that I actually talk about in the book. We talk about pomodoros, where you've got so many minutes of a very intense activity, and then you got to get away. So I
Yeah.
would say the easiest thing to do is don't stay on the mic for too long. Don't try to soldier through. It's not going to increase the performance. Less is more. And if you're a morning person, do it in the morning. If you want to do yoga, meditation, have your green tea, have a ritual, have fun with it, absolutely do it. But definitely do this is the most important. Your book is going to be the most important performance of your life, unless you're a Hollywood actor. So do it when you're fresh. If you're fresh at 5 a.m., do it then. If you're a night person, do it at night. Set that environment. So that's something also in the book too. If you want to be in a creative mood, you've got to set the stage. If you have to put props around or burn candles, as long as the burning doesn't get picked up on the mic, yeah, do it.
No, that is great advice. Great advice. And thank you for sharing that. We got to take another quick break. This is the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. My very special guest is Robert Gaines. We're streaming live on the Bold Brave TV network. We'll be right back.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality? But it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating. Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like, it was almost instant. Like, I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic on the BBM Global Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
We're back. Here we are. Your Book, Your Voice podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Robert A. Lane. My very special guest is Robert Gaines. We've been talking about recording audiobooks. We talked about your book, Scintilla. One thing I want to ask you, Robert, about your book, I know you talk about business concepts in your book. Are there maybe one or two concepts that you talk about in your book that you'd like to share? Like, well, what are a couple of the highlights?
Sure. Since there's two approaches, some people are left brain, some people are right brain. I wrote the book for both types of people. So let's just imagine the avatar for the book. Let's say somebody's 25 to 45. They're stuck in a dead end job. They want to be an entrepreneur. They want to do their own thing. They want to sell a product or start but they have no idea where to begin. They need to come up with an idea. So this book helps to get them there. So for the people that are more technical like me, there are suggestions where you can go in and search with what's popular, what's trending. And I talk about how to extrapolate that data and turn it into something meaningful. So if you're data driven like me and need that type of left brain for that idea to come to you through the analysis of data, we've got several chapters for you. Now, if you're a right brain person, you're into meditation, breath work, we have that too, because I had to, there are some people that like that approach. So we talked about the Pomodoro, where you spend time sketching out ideas, where there's this intense energy and concentration put into it, and then followed by a period of relaxation. And it's based on, so it's a very science-based book. I made sure that it was solid. There's no speculation in there. Everything is, you can go back to peer-reviewed studies on all of it. But even Einstein, who is famous for his outdoor walks, they actually found out that if you do an outdoor walk, like in that beautiful area of the country where you're at, if you're out and the expanse is wide, not a cityscape, but wide as far as the eye can see, looking out into the horizon, that does something to the brain, and it triggers the ability to pull in ideas. So you can start with scraps of paper, just general ideas, and then be really intense about it, then go out on a walk. And then when you come back, it's amazing I call that kind of drawing down the lightning, drawing down these great ideas. So depending on if you're left brain or right brain, we've got something for you in Scintilla.
That's great, and I'm glad you mentioned about the Pomodoro. Of course, is a really good technique, and which is similar to what I tell my clients who I work with. Is like, look, if you're recording and maybe you're not focused, maybe you're not grounded, or maybe you've been doing it for a while, and your energy is dropping, or your voice starts to sound bad, or you're making a lot of mistakes and you're getting frustrated. Step away. Just step away. Give yourself a chance to rejuvenate, change your environment. I even say go for a walk. Go for a walk, because it clears the mind, it gets you refocused. And you know what? If you're tired, or if you don't, if you're just not in your zone, then take a break. Hit it the next day. And that's the beauty about, at least in my program, about sending them the equipment that they need, is that you set up your own recording space, so it's on your timeline. You don't have this pressure of renting or hiring a recording studio or finding a place to go, and then the engineer's like, sorry kid, your time's up, and you got that pressure on your shoulders. I got to get this done. And that does not make for your best delivery. So I'm glad you brought that up, because you just need to step away, refocus, and then you'll be fine. Great piece of advice. Now, I wanted to find out some more pieces of advice in regards to the podcasting world, because you do have a podcast called Free Time Mastermind. And I'm curious, what spawned the idea to become a podcaster?
It's funny. It's all tied in with the book. So I was involved in a mastermind group, and it's a big one. It's a popular group. The guy's a New York Times bestseller. I won't say the name of the organization. No, nothing against them, but anyway, and I thought the mastermind group was pretty good, but I saw that the members, we were paying $500 a month, and that's, I don't know about anybody else, that was a lot of money to me, and I wasn't getting the progress that I wanted, and I think a lot of other members were in the same thing, and some of the problems they were having, I thought were relatively easy to solve, and they weren't getting the help that they needed. And I started thinking, and Robert, this is how bands get started. This is how companies get started. People sit there and they go, I could do this, so that's what I thought. Let me start a mastermind group. I called some friends. We started informally meeting, and then I started to formalize this structure. And with that, I thought, okay, we need other things. And I thought, I need to start a podcast because I'm going to interview entrepreneurs, which the other mastermind group does the same thing. Basically, I took their idea and moved forward with that. And then as I was thinking about the idea for the book, I thought, this is nonfiction. It's great. We could give it away free for members. We could use it as a lead magnet to get people into the mastermind group. And the mastermind group is still at we tried to formalize it. We're back to kind of an informal group again, but I do put a lot of focus into the mastermind group. So all of those things, Robert, the short answer is they're all tied together: the book, the mastermind group, and the mastermind podcast.
And how long have you been doing the podcast?
We just hit a year, 52 episodes. And from the day we started, we've been delivering episodes every week like clockwork without fail. I'm very proud of that because consistency, you hear it on the internet, consistency for podcasters is the number one thing. We've all had that experience where we have the favorite restaurant that's open and closed at random times, and then people quit going. Well,
right.
If you're going to start a podcast, the number one thing is do it. Set a time. I said, I'm going to try this for at least a year. We just hit that year. We're deciding what the future is going to be, if there's going to be a future. But yeah, same thing with the book. Commit, crank out a book, commit to have it done to audio, whatever it is. Put a time that you're going to put into it. And most things take at least a year to even see anything. You need a lot of data. You need to see, are we getting viewers? Are we getting subscribers? Are we selling books? Are we, all of that. And that takes time. You have to commit to at least a year, or otherwise don't get started.
No, I agree with you. It does take time. And even with as long as I've been doing this podcast, you start to see numbers. You start to see results from the data that you've been collecting in regards to what you're doing. And you're right. Once you have the data, then you can assess what the best strategy and what the next step would be for that. So do you have any advice for, and as well as consistency, do you have any other pieces of advice for anybody who thought, well, I want to start a podcast?
Don't do what I did. So the book and the book and the podcast and the mastermind group all share the same problem. They're not specific enough. I'm very proud of my book, Robert. Don't get me wrong. I especially after I revised it the second time, I'm very proud of it, and I do think it will solve that problem. If somebody has no idea what they want to do, if you get through that book, you're going to come through the other side with an idea. I guarantee you that. But it's not niche enough. It solves a whole range of problems. The mastermind group solves a whole range of problems. The podcast, I bring in entrepreneurs from all over the place. Now, there is kind of a common theme. I talk to a lot of digital nomads and expats, so there's an international flavor to it. But we don't serve a niche. And I won't, if you have follow-up questions, that's great. And I don't want to talk too long about this subject, but this is what I deal with when I dealt with visual artists such as painters and photographers, and also the musicians. There's what you love to do, and what you love to talk about. And then there's the thing, what people are willing to pay you to do. And you have to find that crossroads, or just be happy doing what you get paid to do without the satisfaction of the work. My day job, I'm lucky. Sometimes I really enjoy what I do. I work in the insurance industry, which is not normally exciting, but there are aspects of it that really, really, they throw me some really complex problems that I get to solve. And I feel really good when I do that. And the same thing with the podcast. When you came on, you were a fantastic guest. We've continued to stay in contact outside of the interview, which only a handful of guests have, but the relationships have continued. I love that. Had I emailed you out of the blue, I don't know if we would have made the connection that we did. So yes, so first question, if you're thinking about doing a podcast, yes, do it. And freeform it, and you'll figure it out in time. Have a little bit of a plan when you get started, but eventually you'll get frustrated that you're not getting views, likes, engagement, or whatever. But you've got to start getting highly specified in your niche. I'm refusing. I won't. I like what I'm doing, and to hell with the views. But it's because I have a decent day job. I have the privilege of that. But I know people that are trying to survive off their podcast, and I don't want to do that. I want to bring on who I want to bring on. The recording studio was the same way, Robert. I only recorded the bands that I wanted to work with. I went out to the clubs and handpicked artists, put my card in their hand, and I said, "You need to come work with me." I did not take phone calls and cold calling people would come into the studio. I've always done what I want to do, for better or for worse.
Well, I think the point that you brought up is you've really got to niche down and be very specific to what you want to talk about. And that's true because, again, if that's what you want to do, remember that trying to serve everybody, you end up serving nobody. And that's
right.
The way it is. You need to be very specific, because then you'll have the right type of people coming to your podcast and listening to what you have to say. And then especially if you are able to monetize that in some way, then you're going to have a better chance of being able to do that. This is the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. We do have to take one more quick break. My very special guest is Robert Gaines. A lot of great advice happening on this episode. So those of you who are tuning in, you're going to have to listen and watch this many times. Just saying. All right, we're streaming live on the Bold Brave TV network. We'll be right back.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery, or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them. Rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies. Find settings that allow them to be the most productive and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Welcome back to the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. I'm Robert A. Lane, your host. My very special guest is Robert Gaines. We've been talking about recording audiobooks and Robert's book, Scintilla, and getting a lot of really great advice, talking about podcasting as well. I know before we took our break, you had some really good advice about people, if you do want to start a podcast, some things you need to keep in mind, niche it down, consistency, give it time to establish itself. And these are all great pieces of advice. So from a podcast guest standpoint, do you have any advice or pointers?
Yes, one great thing about having a podcast is if you just cold emailed somebody and just said, "Hey, I want to talk to you," but you might not get a good response. But the fact that you have a podcast, so you're going to reach out to guests via email. I have as do you, Robert, a very professional looking email. I have a branded email address, and my signature block looks very professional. I have my VA reach out, which a VA doesn't cost much money. I have Caroline, who's been amazing. Found her on Upwork. We're still working through Upwork. The fact that she's a VA and she reaches out to people makes the podcast look a little bit larger, like a bigger operation. That's been a big advantage for us. And of course, there are Facebook groups, as you know, that are great for meeting guests. But you've got to ask. If you do an interview style like you do and like I do, our formats are very similar. You got to ask a lot of people. You don't want to be scrambling for interviewees. So there's a lot of work in with that. And so your pitch has to be very professional. And when your view count is very low, like if you're on YouTube and you don't have many views or many subscribers, you have to ask even more people, because the first thing they look at is, how many subscribers does this guy have? So.
And as a guest, do you have any advice for somebody who comes on as a guest? Is there any protocols as a guest that people should just be aware of? Like when they go on a podcast,
My approach is the same, both as host and guest, is to lavish a lot of love onto the opposite party, because it really makes the experience go so well. As a host, I feel privileged that the guest has come to spend their time with me, and as a guest, I feel privileged that you asked me. So I always try to keep that in the front of my mind, that there's this wonderful reciprocity and energy going between us. So I try to keep my energy up and keep it going, and because ultimately people want to see exciting things. So for the host, I try to keep it exciting. So if you're going to be a guest, bring some good stories, bring your enthusiasm, get plenty of rest, all the regular tips.
And so, and one more thing that I want to ask you, speaking of bringing some stories, do you have any stories that stick out from your music days, your recording days?
Yes. My best one is I created a piece of equipment from pieces at Radio Shack, which they're not around anymore, but it was an electronic store. So I would say, when you first learn something, the difficulty is the technical. The more difficult, once you start an endeavor, is the psychological. When you're dealing with talent, you're dealing with the egos and the psychology. So a lot of times, if we were mixing something, the musicians would say, "This doesn't sound quite right," and there would be a lot of dispute about different things. Well, I had this box that had 2 lights on it. It looked like it was connected to everything, but it absolutely was not connected to anything, and it didn't do anything except when I turned the dial, the second light came on. And people don't want to admit, I've never told this before. People don't want to admit that they didn't hear the difference. So when they were all that dispute, I said, "Now hold on, and let me turn this piece of equipment on." And I would turn it on, and I would roll the dial until the second light, and I would say, "Now, do you hear that? Do you hear that?" It sweetens the sound a little bit. And they would I'm telling you, that stopped so many fights and arguments in the studio. So and I hated to do that, but there was just no other way. It's almost like some of the best performances I ever got out of musicians were when they didn't think we were recording. So it's a game. You have to tease out that great performance. And I was very fortunate to have worked with some wonderful people.
That cracks me up, because again, Leland Sklar, one of the greatest bass players in the world, has played with everybody. And if you don't know who Leland Sklar is, just think of the guy with the long hair, the beard that it's longer than ZZ Top, right? This guy, he has a switch on his bass, and I forget what he called it. It's escaping my mind, but it was a switch that's connected to nothing. And when the engineer says, "Hey, you need to change your tone," and he'll flip the switch, make sure that they see him flip the switch that's not connected to anything. And he's like, "How's that?" "Oh, yeah, it's much better."
It's amazing. Perception is so much of reality, Robert. It's so
It
much of
totally
reality.
is. Robert, we're almost out of time. How do people get in touch with you if they want to get your book, if they want to, maybe work with you and somehow, how would people get in touch with you?
You bet. Well, the book is available on, I'm exclusively on Amazon in that ecosystem, and that's another conversation for another time why. But Scintilla, the ultimate guide to generating business ideas, products, and services, is available as a Kindle, paperback, hardcover, and of course, as an audiobook on Amazon. For me, I'm the host of the Free Time Mastermind podcast, which is primarily on YouTube. We're a visual medium. You can find us on all of the other places where, through the RSS feeds, I think Apple and Spotify. But again, our home is really in on YouTube, and those are the two best places. I'm a big Facebooker. I know that's only for old folks now, as the kids tell me, but I'm on there. You'll see my unmistakable face. But that's it. And of course, we do have a main website that's www.freetimemastermind.com. But best to find us through the podcast.
Awesome. Robert, thank you so much for joining the podcast today. I really appreciate it. Great advice, great stories, and it's just been a pleasure having you on as a guest. So thank you so much.
Pleasure's mine, Robert. Thank you.
And as we wrap up, again, my assignment to you is this. When you're out and about in the world, smile at a stranger, say hello to them, give them a compliment, because that small gesture of kindness can make the world a difference in somebody's life. So be a life changer. All right. We'll see you next week here on the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. I'm Robert A. Lane. If you want to find out more about what I do as an audiobook coach and producer, you can go to robertlanecoaching.com. Have a great week, my friends. We'll be talking to you soon. Take care.
This has been Your Book, Your Voice with host Robert A. Lane. Tune in each week for another powerful and informative episode of Your Book, Your Voice, Thursdays, 8 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network.